Hello, everyone. We are live. It is tax day 2026. So happy holidays to those who celebrate. The CPAs can now go and do whatever they want to do after working from sunrise to sundown the past couple of months. And then this is just your final reminder to get your taxes filed. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today's webinar is going to be on college planning, and we're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to talk about the PFW Money Plan course, and in the content of the webinar, I will showcase that a little bit. And then if you stay till the end, you will get free access. And then we're also going to go through some things like the biggest fears parents have. What does good college planning look like? And then we're also going to dive into the software that we use to help families get a kind of a personalized budget. We call it the college pre-approval. I'll showcase that software as well to show you what we can do for you. You'll also get an opportunity to work with us for free using that software for attending today's webinar. But I'm not going to dilly-dally on too much longer. I have the content of this webinar pre-recorded. We found that pre-recording the webinars works better. We've had some technology issues in the past, so I'm going to turn it over to Past Will. He's going to go through a little intro, and then he'll cover the remainder of the webinar, and I'll hop back in live at the end if there are any questions or any comments. But I will kick it off to my past self. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Will Schrader, a financial advisor here at Prairie Fire Wealth Planning. And today's topic is very timely to the month of April and to spring, which is From Overwhelmed to Prepared, a Parent's Guide to College Planning. Now, if you are a parent of a high schooler, sophomore, junior, senior, college planning and the college decision process is probably front of mind, and rightfully so. If you're a junior, senior, you really got to start kicking it into gear when it comes to this stuff. So we thought this was a great time to give you guys some tips, and hopefully you'll learn something from today's session. But we're going to talk about a few different things today. One of them being the PFW Money Plan is a course I put together that covers a wide range of college planning topics, and you'll get free access today for watching. And then we're also going to talk about what does good college planning look like, getting the process started, three biggest fears that parents have around college and college planning, a couple tips to try and save some money. Fortunately, there's no magic bullet to make college free, but just a few tips to try and hopefully save you some money. And then we're also going to show you our software that we use to give families an idea of how much college is going to cost for their kid at different schools. So without further ado, here is our lovely disclosures. Okay, I'm going to start with the PFW College Money Plan. So like I just mentioned, it's a course I put together, and it's laid out in different modules. So this is just a screenshot of the home screen, and you can see the first module is understanding what you can afford. I have a video there that would basically just be like a webinar, me talking to a screen and a camera, and then two supplemental one-page PDFs, kind of fact sheets, to just give you some more information. And here's an example of one of those. This one is the Financial Aid Appeal Basics. And with this course, you are able to go at your own pace, pick and choose which modules you want to do, and then you can always go back at a later time and reference these if you need. So stay tuned for the end of the session. We will give you the link to get free access here. You just need to sign up with your email. I promise we're not going to be spamming you with stuff We just need your email to get you registered. So stay tuned for that. Okay, this is the main part of the webinar, and we're going to start off with what does good college planning look like? And it all starts with having some sort of plan in place. When I was going through this process, I feel like I did not have any plan. And that's probably my fault because, well, first, I was the first child to go through this process, right? So we were going in blind as a family. And second off, I probably didn't put in the most amount of effort that I could have. I was a pretty lazy high schooler, so the idea of filling out applications, doing essays for scholarships, researching colleges, all that stuff sounded pretty boring, and I didn't want to do it. But definitely, you want to sit down with your child. Probably sophomore year is a good place to start, and just have a discussion with them and set realistic expectations. And those expectations need to include a realistic price range, right? If your kid has dreams of going to Harvard or NYU or Northwestern and you're a middle to high income family who's not going to get a lot of need based aid and you're going to be paying a lot out of pocket, and that's not doable, then you need to tell them that up front. You don't want them to get their hopes up and then, there be some unnecessary tension or arguments in the family. And they also need to figure out who's paying for what. Is your student paying for it all? Are you sharing the cost so your student has some skin in the game? Or do you want to cover their entire cost of tuition? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's totally up to the family. But having those expectations set early before you even go on college visits, I think is really, really important. So you're not wasting your time visiting schools that are not within reach financially, and so you don't get your kids' hopes up. And then you want to begin visits junior year. Definitely visit multiple schools that you're interested in and that are in your price range or you think are in your price range, and make sure to list out the pros and cons of each school and then let your student figure out what's important to them, what's not so important to them, weigh your options, and go from there. Another tip here is to visit the colleges during the school year. Now, you'll have to take time off of work and pull your kid out of school, but I think it's so worth it. When I went on college visits, here in Iowa, I went to 4 schools, and the 2 I was between were the University of Iowa and the University of Northern Iowa. And University of Iowa, we went in the spring, and just seeing all the kids walking around campus was so cool. As a high schooler, my first time being on a college campus, I thought that's for sure where I wanted to go. It was a great experience. And then we ended up going to the University of Northern Iowa on a tour like in July, and it was a ghost town just because all the kids were on summer break, so they weren't walking around campus. And so my first impression of University of Northern Iowa was not great because it didn't have the same like typical college feel that Iowa did because there weren't any kids there. Well, when push came to shove, I ended up going to the University of Northern Iowa for some other reasons, but I do think first impressions are important, and I'll always remember that. Visiting Iowa and UNI, they had such different feels just because of the time of year we went. So give each college a level playing field and go during the school year. And then have a decision made going into senior year if you can. That way you can get a jump start on the application process, maybe get started on some scholarship essays, and then getting ready for the FAFSA. Now, you definitely want to send your financial aid stuff, your FAFSA, to multiple schools to see what offers you get back. So you'll have your top choice and maybe have 2 or 3 other choices, backup schools, and just see what they give you for financial aid packages. But definitely try and have a decision made going into senior year. Okay, moving on. 3 biggest fears parents have around college. Now, obviously, number 1 is affordability, and I have a few slides on how crazy expensive college is getting, and we'll talk about those in a second. And then 2 is losing control of your child. I talk about this quite a bit in the course, the PFW Money Plan. And um, Matt talks about this in his book, and I have a quote later from his book talking about how you're shifting from the traditional parent kind of boss role to more of a mentor, kind of mentoring them, your child through becoming a young adult. So you're always be mom and dad. You're just shifting your role a little bit. And then number three, uncertainty around return on investment. And we'll touch on that after the first two. But I want to swing back to affordability because some of these numbers are just insane. This is inflation rates since 1983. So if you can see there, cars 77%. Okay, that makes sense. A car in 1983 was a lot cheaper than it is now. Gas, okay, I remember, my parents, grandparents telling me how cheap gas was back when they were growing up compared to now. Housing, same thing. Houses were a lot cheaper at 261%. And then we get down to tuition. 914%. That averages out to 5.5% a year. Are you kidding me? I mean, that is insane. And there's no sign of it slowing down. So college planning is just getting more and more important. And the earlier you start, the better. And I'm talking like when your kids are babies or just born. Begin saving for this because the price just keeps going up, 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 up. Here's another look. Projected cost of a 4-year college education. Right now, if your kid's 18, if you're going to a public in-state, so here in Iowa, if you're going to Iowa, UNI, or Iowa State, looking at 111,000. Okay, that's still a lot of money. Public out of state, almost double at almost 200,000. Private college, obviously those are always more expensive, 262,000. Over $250,000 already. Look if you have a newborn. In-state public college, over $250,000. You better start saving now. Out of state public university, we're almost at $500,000. Private college, as a newborn, 18 years from now, projected at $631,000. Holy buckets. I mean, if you don't do any college planning and you send your kid to a private university in 18 years, and it's going to cost $631,000, I mean, they're going to be paying off their student loans for the rest of their life. So planning is super, super important. And that is why affordability is my number one fear, because it is a legit concern. Colleges are very, very, very expensive. It is one of the most expensive purchases a family will make outside of their residence, possibly even more than what their house costs when everything is all said and done. So definitely a valid concern to have, and that's why planning is so, so important. And we'll show you the software and how we break it down, and how families can get a more detailed look at how much college is going to cost for them. Now, number two, losing control of your child. Like I said before, you're shifting from the traditional parent boss role, telling your kid what to do, to a more mentor role, guiding them through becoming an adult. But one thing I talk about in the course, and I don't want to spoil everything, but I talk about before they go to school, have another conversation with them, talking about communication, right? Those first few weeks, even first semester of freshman year of college, it's so busy and pretty hectic. A lot of life changes going on, so many new people to meet, a lot of adjustments need to be made to your lifestyle. And so your kid might not have a bunch of time to be texting you all day or talking to you on the phone every day. So might be a good idea to have a conversation and carve out a time set aside every week or every other week, whatever cadence you guys want, that that you're going to be able to talk to them, and it's something that they can look forward to. So once they get their college schedule, which is usually after freshman orientation, that's when you pick your first semester classes, and that's usually the summer before you move in. Once you have your schedule, then you can figure out where your student has some free time, where you have free time, and you can um, carve out a time to talk to them rather than nagging them all day long. Because then if you're nagging them all day long and they're not responding, then you might get upset, and then they get upset because you're upset, and it's just you don't need it. They don't need that extra stress in their life. Um, I never had a problem with this. I text my parents regularly. I still do, but I only talk to them on the phone probably once every couple of weeks, and that's been from college on, really. And that's just something that works for us. We've gotten in a rhythm, and have gone from there. But I think it's definitely worth having the conversation of trying to figure out a time to make family time. And then if they come home on the weekends too, great. For some kids, they'll come home more than others. Freshman year, I was home every other weekend, and that was really just to recharge my social battery because I was with people nonstop during the week, and on weekends I was at college. It was just people in my dorm room, or I was in my friend's dorm room, and so I just needed to come home and decompress. So you could talk about that as well, how much they're gonna come home. And then finally, uncertainty around return on investment. Now, this ties back to affordability because if you're uncertain on your return on investment, you're investing $631,000, just using the extreme case here. If you're investing $631,000 into a college education, you might be concerned that if they're going to make that, like, what's their career earnings look like? Is it going to be anywhere close to that? Is it going to surpass that? Is it not going to surpass that until they're about ready to retire? All things to consider. If you're going to a private college, paying $631,000, and your kid is majoring in something that does not have a lot of earnings potential, then you might want to have a realistic conversation with them that might not be worth the cost if that's what you're going to school for, and look to alternative options. But if you're going to your regular in-state public university, it's about as cheap as you can get for college, then I think college might still be worth it. And it's not just for the earnings potential piece. I think it's also important to mention the social piece, the maturing piece. Students mature a lot in college, um, and they figure out who they are, what they want to do, who they want to surround themselves with. I think that is worth something. Maturing and becoming an adult. And then the other part is the social piece, the friends that you make in college. I have a couple of friends that I grew up with and went to high school with that I still talk to and I'm still close with, but the majority of my close knit friends are those that I met my freshman year of college that all lived on my floor in the dorms. I consider them my closest friends, lifelong friendships, and I think that's also worth something too. And for a lot of people, you might meet your significant other there. My fiance and I met at college, so that's got to be worth a lot too, right? So just that stuff is something that you want to keep in mind when thinking about return on investment. Okay, so now that we got the fears covered, let's talk about 4 tips to pay less for college. Like I said at the beginning, there's no magic bullet to make college free. I wish there was. I wish I could tell you there was, but there's not. Without scholarships, financial aid, you're going to be paying a pretty penny for a college education. But the 4 tips I have: attack every scholarship opportunity. Seriously, every dollar counts. If I could go back and tell high school Will one thing, it would be to take this scholarship application process way more seriously. I'm pretty sure I did like one essay. My high school had this thing where we like answered these essay questions, and then they would send them off to like a bunch of different scholarships or something like that. And so that's all I did. Didn't get a single dollar. So obviously I didn't try very hard. So definitely take the time. I know as a senior in college, you do not want to be writing more essays, but it is so worth it. Even if you get $1,000 a year, that's $1,000. That'd be $4,000 less you have to pay back if you take out student loans, or $4,000 less your parents have to pay. So totally, totally worth it. Number two, appeal your financial aid offer. This doesn't always work, but for some people, it can work wonders. When you are submitting your FAFSA, it's looking at prior year financial data. So let's say, for example, you as parents had an unusual earning year. You earned way more in the prior year than normal, and what you submitted on your FAFSA doesn't accurately represent what your normal income is like. Could be a time to appeal via an appeal letter saying, "Hey, that was an unusual learning or earnings year. This is what the normal is. This is the top choice. Really want to go here, but with the current financial aid package, not sure it's affordable, yada, yada, yada." We have resources in the PFW Money Plan course on how to write your appeal letter. Another thing would be medical emergencies. If you send in your FAFSA, it's your normal earnings, whatever, and then this year you had a medical emergency, you're paying X amount of dollars a month towards your medical bills that could be going to college, or maybe you had planned for college that aren't going to college anymore because you need to pay your medical bills. That could be something to appeal. Now, again, this doesn't always work, but if you send that in, the school could come back and offer you a more attractive financial aid package. So something to try if you have a specific situation. Number three, excuse me, start with a lower cost pathway such as community college or a new 3-year path. So community college has always been a cheaper route than just going through a normal 4-year traditional university path. The community college, you're going to save costs on tuition. It's not as expensive. And two, you could save money on room and board. You could still live at home if your community college is close, and that's definitely worth something. Room and board is not cheap. So you're living at home and save money on tuition. It's going to cut your costs greatly. And I have a slide on that here I'll show you. This is just comparing the cost of traditional 4-year route versus community college for 2 years. I mean, it almost cuts it in half. On average, you're saving about $4,150 on tuition and fees. Even at a newborn, look at the difference. $161,000 versus what we looked at earlier, $631,000. So something to think about. I know not everyone wants to go to community college. They want that traditional 4-year college experience, and freshman year is where you meet a lot of your friends. So something to think about. There's definitely trade-offs there. But if you're more cost conscious rather than wanting the traditional experience, then it could be a good option. The new 3-year path, I know some schools are doing this here in Iowa. The University of Northern Iowa just announced it, where they have like over 30 majors that you can complete in 3 years. Now, this works if you have college credits from high school, which is another cost saving strategy. If you can take college classes in high school and get credits, definitely do that. That was something my parents urged me to do, and I didn't listen. So another mistake by me. Definitely take the college classes in high school. They're cheaper, probably a little bit easier, and those credits can be used to satisfy requirements in college. But the 3-year pathway, essentially you take full loads in the fall and spring semester, and then you might have to take a class or two over the winter, and you also have to take classes over the summer. So you're still taking the same amount of credits, which means you're probably paying pretty similar tuition, if not the same tuition. You're just cutting out a year, which means that could be one less year of expensive student housing. That also means you're getting into your career 1 year sooner, starting to earn money faster. So if you have student loans, you can start paying those down quicker. So something to think about. And then lastly, save money on education materials via Chegg, Facebook groups, etc. University bookstores are so expensive. Well, textbooks are just expensive, period. And what I found is while professors may say, you need this textbook for my class, you might not even use it. There are so many times where I rented or bought a textbook and I didn't open it once. Such a waste of money. So, some things to consider: get through syllabus week in your classes, really see if you think you're going to need the textbook. And if you do, then go to Chegg. You can rent them for cheaper than your bookstore. Or colleges have Facebook groups where students are selling their old textbooks they don't need anymore for a discount, just because they want some bar money or whatever. So they're just selling their textbooks for cheap. So something to think about. But there is a risk here if you wait, because some textbooks there's limited supply, and if you wait, they could be gone. So that's a risk you might have to take. It's something I never ran into, but definitely something to consider. I just thought it was worth mentioning to look outside of the university's bookstore because they are expensive. Okay, with all that in mind, I'm going to jump to the software here. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is the software we use to help families figure out in their specific situation what specific schools look like as far as cost goes. So this is an example client. This is not a real person. This is Biff. Student is Biff, and parents are Bill and Bonnie. So right off the bat, we just start filling in personal information. Right here, we have parent stuff, date of birth, all that, yada yada. We have their income. Bill earned 100,000. Bonnie earns 45,000, and it's got their AGI, income taxes paid, all that fun stuff. Then we move down to parent assets, savings, investments. If you have equity in your home, retirement assets, 401ks, IRAs, all that. Then we go to the student bio. This is where we put in your GPA, the student's GPA, test scores, high school rank if they have that, all that. And then if they've earned any income and if they have any assets. Once we have that information in, we move to budget. So this is where we put in any 529 savings. And then if you're still planning to contribute to a 529, what that would be, any pledged assets outside of the 529, if you just have cash set aside or whatever that you've earmarked for college, and then any cash flow you're going to provide throughout the college years, American Opportunity Tax Credit, and then if the student or grandparents have pledged anything. And once we get all that in there, you can see at the bottom 4-year college budget, 79,000. That's just adding all this stuff up, and then first year college budget is 19,750. After that, you choose which schools you want to go to, and you can pick any school in the country on here. We can put it on. But in Biff's case, he's looking at NYU, Iowa, UNI, and Notre Dame. So 4 very different schools, very different prices. And then we just put like applying dates, deadlines, all that good stuff, just to kind of keep track of things. If you're getting any awards from the schools that you know of. And once all that's in here, we come to the how to pay section. So this is for NYU, and it breaks it down by year. So you can see 24, 25, 26, 27. So this is a little bit old. Biff has been an example client for a while, so that's why it's showing some older years. But you can see for NYU, 1 year of tuition, $62,000. Room and board, $24,000. Books and supplies, $1,400, and then travel and miscellaneous, $42.94. Now, this travel and miscellaneous column is definitely one that can be manipulated quite a bit. It can be greatly reduced, especially if you're going to a local college in your state, chances are you're probably not going to be spending over $4,000 on travel every year. But you can put that at what you want. But it is going to include it in the total cost of college, so it's adding about 18,000 to this cost of college. We get down here to the whopping cost of attendance of $389,000. Wowza. And then moving down, need-based grants. It's giving us over 40,000. Well, it's giving us a lot of money, actually. $220,000 in need-based grants based on the financial data that we put in. So one thing to note about these super, super expensive, very prestigious private colleges or universities, they don't offer any merit-based aid, right? All the kids that go there are super smart. They don't need to offer merit-based aid to attract talent, right? They're only going to offer need-based aid to students who need it. So that's something to think about. If your kid is set on going to somewhere prestigious, just know you're not going to get any merit-based aid. And if you're a middle to high income earner, you're probably not going to get a ton of need-based aid either. So something to think about there. And then any scholarships or grants, those will get added here. And that brings our net cost down to $169,000. That's just taking this cost of attendance number and subtracting all of this granted money here. And then we take your college budget amount of $79,000, subtract it from the net cost, and that's how we get our funding gap. And that's where the planning comes in. We need to figure out how we're going to cover that funding gap. Are we going to pledge additional assets? Are we going to take out student loans? Is the parent going to take out the loans? The student going to take out the loans? What does that look like? And that's where this software really provides value, because it breaks down everything line by line, and then you can figure out how much more money you need to fund your kid's college education. Let's look at a different example. Let's go to the University of Northern Iowa, my alma mater. Look at that. Room and board, or tuition, excuse me. A little under $10,000 for the first couple of years. A lot different than NYU. So cost of attendance, $94,000. And look at this. We get scholarships. So another cool thing about this software is it has scholarships for each school. And based on the data we put in, it will automatically select ones that we qualify or you qualify for. So in this case, Biff qualifies for the Panther Award. All incoming freshmen will automatically be considered. And if you have these test scores, which he has a 3.5 GPA, 25 in the ACT, he's getting $4,000 per year just for having those test scores. So this also could be a good tool, because if you're thinking about retaking the SAT or ACT, we can look and say, okay, if he gets, in this case, or if he needed to bump up his GPA, if he had a 3.3 GPA, he'd only be getting $3,000 a year. But since he has a 3.5, he got his grades up, he gets an extra $1,000 and gets $4,000 a year. So another tool we can use, but it automatically applies, so he gets $12,000 off, brings his net cost down to $82,000. Our college budget amount is $79,000, so we only need to figure out how to come up with $3,700 across 4 years. A lot more affordable than NYU. So that is a look at the software. And for watching today, we can also help you with this, put in all your financial data and kind of show you what's in different schools look like. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us after session today. But the last thing I want to talk about is the book, Empty Nest Full Pockets. The author, my boss, the CEO of Prairie Fire Wealth Planning, Matt Moline, selling millions of copies worldwide. These are just some quotes I pulled from his book that I think relate to today's webinar. So the first one, you'll always be mom and dad, but your child may need you in a different way now. That's when I talked about shifting from the traditional parent role to more of a mentor role. And then many parents disregard this step, believing that they either will not qualify because they make more money than the random preconceived limits. Others assume large, affluent educational institutions would not be interested in offering them aid because they do not have enough resources. That second part of the quote is pretty powerful because these affluent institutions only offer need-based aid. They do not offer merit-based aid. So if you don't have enough resources and your kid really wants to go there, it doesn't hurt to apply to see what kind of financial aid package they can give you. But if you're high to middle to high income, then, well, that's just the way it works. You probably won't be getting too much in financial aid. And the third one, two-year solution can serve as a transition or destination for many students. The cost savings is marked, and many students can fulfill many of the general education requirements that will be required if they later choose to pursue a 4-year degree. This goes back to the community college tip on how to save money. You can get most of your gen eds out of the way via community college. There are so many classes at UNI that I had to take for gen eds that, if I'm being honest, I don't remember one thing I learned from those, and they cost me quite a bit of money. It would have been a lot cheaper at a community college. I would have got the same stuff out of the community college class that I got out of the class at UNI. So again, if your number one priority is cost savings compared to the traditional college experience, community college can be a great option. And wow, that was it. 34 minutes clocked in. My voice is tired, and sorry if I sound a little nasally. I'm coming off of a cold or something. So I'm definitely going to need to drink some water after this. But just a reminder to register for the PFW Money Plan, give free access for life. If you register for that course and there's something in there that you don't see but you want to see, reach out to me, and we'll look at if that's something that we can add. I can just go in there and add modules whenever I want. So if there's something that people are requesting, I can definitely put it in there for you all. And then you'll also gain free access to the College Aid Pro software. That's the software I just went through. Again, no cost there, completely free. Just reach out to us if you'd like to get started there. But without further ado, let me grab up my last slide here. There's my mug shot, and there's my contact info. If you have any questions or, again, want to reach out, gain access to any of this stuff we talked about today, feel free to reach out. Thank you all for watching and sitting through this super, super fun. All right. Thank you, Past Sick Will, for going through all of that. I have the link to the PFW Money Plan live right now, so you can grab that if you'd like. Again, free for life. You can just use it as a reference. Go to whichever modules you want, and go at your own pace. And then if you're interested in that software that we showcased, just feel free to reach out to me directly at will@pfwplanning.com. Happy to get to work with you on that. And then also, if you want a copy of Empty Nest Full Pockets, Matt's book, we can definitely get that over to you as well. But I am not seeing any questions. If any questions come up later, again, feel free to shoot them over to me after the call. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and have a great